Notification pop up. All right, and now we'll officially get started. So first, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kelly Choi. I'm the Director of Grants and Community Partnerships at Arts Fairfax. I'm a white woman with blondish brownish hair. Today I'm wearing a brown and white pattern top, and I'm very happy to be here today. Many of you already know me. I want to recognize Shannon Smith, who is on the call, who you're probably connecting with, as well as our Artist and Community Partnerships Manager. So thanks for joining us, Shannon, and we'll dive in and get started. So today we're here to talk primarily about the Ticket and Participation Subsidy Grant. This is the third year we're in this grant program that we're offering. We have had a couple of changes. I'll talk more about that a little bit later, but I know we have both returning and new applicants on the call today. So thank you all for joining us. So today really we're going to kind of aim to go through this grant program as you will when you're applying for it. So I want to start with the things that you should really think about the grant itself before you apply, while you're getting together your application, and then while you're actually submitting and writing your material, and then what you need to know about what happens after the application. So a couple quick notes before we jump into this specific program. At a high level, this is Arts Fairfax. I know many of you know many of us at this point. There are a couple new faces up here on the computer today. So if you haven't already met Stuart Holt, he's our new president and CEO. He loves hearing from arts organizations and seeing them, so feel free to reach out to him through me or through directly to him. His contact information is online. As I mentioned, Shannon's on the call today. She is really engaged in the organizational and community aspects of the art groups in the county. So you might hear from her about the artist census and other happenings. You'll hear from me. Another person you'll hear a lot from is Young, who helps get the payment to you. So you can hear from any of us and you can contact any of us. Our information's on the website if you need to know more about our team. Arts Fairfax overall, in case there's anybody on this call or listening to the recording who is brand new to the organization. If you're not familiar with what we do, most of our work really falls into these three big buckets. We provide funding opportunities through the arts. We do this through advocacy with Fairfax County and beyond. We offer 3 grant programs. And we offer resources for organizations who are connecting in the county to find other opportunities for funding as well. We work to promote the arts and culture in Fairfax County, City of Falls Church, and City of Fairfax. We do that through our events calendar, so definitely check that out on our website if you haven't already added your own organization events for the year. We do that through our arts directory on our our arts directory, which is kind of right now functioning with the artist survey, as well as a public art locator. So all these things I could talk about for a while, but for the sake of today's conversation, we're gonna move quickly through this part. We also really aim to connect the arts community in Fairfax, so providing professional development opportunities for those involved either in a volunteer or a paid staff role with arts organizations, and helping to facilitate partnerships between different county agencies or corporate groups that might want to engage in the arts in some way. Lots to offer, more on our website. If anything here has piqued your interest, please email myself or Shannon. We'll get you to the right person. All right. So to dive into the real meat of today's conversation, this is an overview of the Ticket and Participation Subsidy Grant Program. So I'm going to do my best to highlight the pieces that some are a change and some are just a clarification. So anybody who's returning, I'll be sure to point that out to you. And I want to also make sure we're highlighting pieces that we really ask about in our application. So as you get started, as you're thinking, should I apply for this grant? Is this right for my organization or my event? You should know, really the purpose of the grant is to fund free and reduced price tickets and or transportation and or participation scholarships for people who may not have a regular opportunity to access the arts. And I want to emphasize that second half of the purpose because you'll see that really addressed in the application. And I think sometimes that is a piece that gets forgotten, and by the time you get to the application, it's not quite there. So think about that as you're considering who to offer this opportunity to and how you're presenting the application. The major details, this is unlike a lot of our grants program. It is a rolling deadline, so it's open right now. It's available until June 30th or until the funds are spent down. And it really takes about 30 days for us to approve and review the application. So it's a very quick turnaround. It's a short application, and it's really open until the funds are gone. That you can also submit before and after, before or after an event. We'll come back to that in a little bit when we look at the application as well. Your deadlines, like I said, it's a rolling application, but it is going to be dependent on when your event takes place. This is a change from last year's application. So the window of time which you may submit a request for this grant, again, is going to be dependent on when your event takes place. I'm going to get more to that later in the conversation. All right, so I do want to take a moment to do a quick walkthrough, high level of the eligibility of the grant. I am not going to read everything that's here, and I strongly encourage you to go to our website, look at this eligibility within the grant guidelines. Reach out to us if you have any question at all about your organization's eligibility. I do think it's important to highlight some pieces within this text. So the first two major eligibility criteria, these are the same for our other grant programs. If you have not received or applied for an Arts Fairfax grant before, primarily these two state you must be an organization with a core mission in the arts in some discipline, and that you must have a 501c3 status or pending status. There's a couple other points in here. Again, I can talk this through with you if you have questions that are specific to your organization, but those are the first two key places. The third criteria really focuses on the organization's relationship to Fairfax County, because our organization is aimed to serve Fairfax County. Our funding comes from Fairfax County. This is the group that we work with. So we ask you to have an address of record within Fairfax County, City of Fairfax, or City of Falls Church. That's the one primary criteria here. We'll do that by looking at a specific form, which I'll show you in a moment. But you can also see within this location requirement, you must meet one of the other three criteria that we've spelled out about where you're meeting and rehearsing, or about the members of your board, or about your attendees. So again, this is a tricky place that we might want to talk about. If you're new to applying, please come ask me before you do all the work of putting the application together. So I mentioned with that third criteria, that address of record in Fairfax County, City of Falls Church, and City of Fairfax. We determine your address of record by the Virginia 102 form. So there's a copy of this form on the screen right now. This form at maybe about 3 pages down, it asks for your organization's physical address. And that's the address we're using to determine your organization's location. Again, this is a thing that can present very specific questions to organizations who, even though you have to have a physical address, you might not have one for your organization. It might be your treasurer's address or your board member's address. If you think you're in a situation where we need to talk about that address not lining up with the county or how it would affect a change in your organization, please reach out so we can work with you to determine the information that we need here. The links that are included in this PDF, which I'll share after our conversation, can take you to this form and can speak a little bit more about who needs to complete it. There's also something called a Virginia 100 form, and if you're a very small organization, you might only need to fill out the Virginia 100 and not the 102. I do just need a copy of this form right now. So once you submit the form to the state, you will get a letter back from them that says, thanks for submitting it. That's great. Right now, I need a copy of the form, so you don't need to wait on the letter. And I don't necessarily need the letter too. We can look it up in the database that exists for the state as well. All right. So that third one is kind of the biggest piece of the criteria that I want to highlight. These other 4 criteria here, again, they're really similar to our other grant opportunities. So you're going to see that you're required to have submitted all your final reports from any other Arts Fairfax grant that you've received. There's certain financial documents you're going to be required to upload. And then you have to, the last 2 actually are updates or clarifications, I think, for this coming year. So one was a change that we actually started last year. An organization can apply twice per grant cycle. The awards combined cannot exceed that $5,000 mark. This is the reason that the committee kind of allowed for this 2 applications per cycle is that we wanted to make sure that when an organization is making a request, they're giving us a realistic request of the tickets that might get used. So I think we found, and a lot of times, especially an organization who started a program, it's not always clear when you're establishing a relationship how many tickets you want to be able to offer, or you should ask for. So by allowing you to apply a second time, you can either apply ahead of time and retroactively to really fulfill all the tickets that were used. Or once you've established that relationship, you can say, wait, we need more tickets for the next go round. So we are allowing a 2 per grant period application. The second thing that we have clarified this year as of FY25 is that the program that you are supporting, it must take place in Fairfax County, City of Fairfax, or City of Falls Church. And that includes the performance venue. So you can't offer tickets for a performance that's taking place, in Alexandria City or out in Loudoun County, something like that. You will also be asked to, and this is a continuation, you'll also be asked to document that at least 50% of the ticket subsidy recipients are Fairfax County, City of Falls Church, or City of Fairfax residents. All right, we're going to do one more quick note, and then I'm going to stop for a minute for some questions. So last piece to think about as you are first, identifying if you're going to apply for this or even consider this opportunity. The items that you can include as expenses. So you can include the value of the ticket, and that would include or be inclusive of a ticket fee. So if you're working with a venue that has a ticketing fee, you can include that fee on top of it. You can include fees for tuition and classes and workshops in the application, and you can include transportation expenses. So those are the only 3 things that you can fund through the application or through the grant. And it'll be real clear when we take a look at the application how you're going to spell that out for us. So I want to take a moment and just allow anybody to ask questions on that first piece that we went through, the overview of the grant itself, the eligibility for organizations, or the eligible expenses. So if you've got a question, you're welcome to either put it in the chat, speak out loud. Joanna, do you have a question?
Are you talking to me? Me, Joanna? Yes. Hi,
yeah.
Hi, Kelly. Well, we've had some good news. It would appear we're not going to be closed down and knocked to the ground. So I can start looking at grants again with honesty. Well, until next April anyway, April or June. So a lot of the things I do here in Arts Herndon are free anyway, because of the nature of my community. But you talk about fees, tuition for classes, workshops, camps. So I could put on a class or a workshop and I could do it for free, and the money could go towards the tuition. Is that right or not really?
No. Not really. So if you're putting on a class and there's a workshop, with a cost associated for that, yeah. Great. Now let's say you really want to partner with this FCPS school that's right there.
Yeah,
like some group that's serving a different organization in the county, and you want to offer them 10 slots in this class.
Right.
Yeah. So you can do that in the sense that I don't think you can bill this as a free class. Like,
okay.
It can be a scholarship.
Right. Okay. I think I get. Okay. I'm doing a children's book festival in October. Obviously it's open to the public and it's free, but we could do a workshop. As I'm understanding it now, we could do a workshop that would have a monetary value to it, but this could cover. So instead of the children, the monetary value would be, say, the children paying $5 a head to go, but I can cover it and not charge. Correct? Yes.
Well, yes, but I think to be clear, like if you're offering that event to the public, then there has to be a cost, and then you have to be clear like about what's happening and who it's being offered to.
Okay. I need to think that one through a bit better then.
And I think when we get to the application, some of it's going to make more sense. Because kind of like we hit on at the very beginning, part of this grant and part of what the grants committee has advised is that this is intended to expand access, right? So we are looking for you to sort of identify how this is expanding access.
Right.
What we've heard from the grants committee before is that offering it free to anybody isn't necessarily, engaging a new group and expanding.
Right.
So I think that's the part that you're going to need to articulate.
Noodle around. And I'm working with Fairfax County Public Libraries as well. So I can talk with them and we can noodle something out that might work in this instance. Because I think I've struggled with how could I apply for this grant.
Right.
Because
and I think you're not alone.
I do is free anyway.
You're not alone in that. I think I've heard
Yeah.
that from other people. So I think that is important for us to hit on here today.
Yeah.
And so I will say to the rest of the group that if you're trying to figure out how this fits into your programming, we're always happy to just have a brainstorming conversation and see where that.
And I think, Kelly, that, you know, if we could have one of those offline, that would be really great, because I'm sure other people have got questions. I got a million questions, but I'm sure other people have too. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions right now? I don't see anything in the chat. Jump in if I'm missing you. All right, so that's kind of, in my mind, those are the pieces for you to have some awareness of before you apply.
Mhm.
I'm also going to take you on a brief peek at our website. And again, I think some of you are going to know the information here already. And for some of you, even if you're returning, you might be, I didn't realize that was there. So when you come to the Arts Fairfax website, and is this a strange proportion for you? Can everybody see this okay? How are we doing? On the shared screen?
Nothing visible so far.
The website's not up. Let's try again. Let's see.
There it is.
All right, lovely. So we've got the lovely main page that we come to, and when you're looking for grants information, you find it under the arts funding, among other places on the website. And I'll take you straight to the ticket and participation subsidy grant. On each of our grant pages, we've tried to have a very similar format. So you can find information you might need as you're thinking about applying, as you actually go to the application, and then after the application is all done. So I do want to draw your attention to this section, which includes the grant guidelines. So that's this document right here, as well as the application preview questions. So again, we'll get to it in submittable in just a little bit. But if you want to take a look at those questions before you take yourself through the process of getting that account, it's right here for you to download. And all those eligibility pieces we talked through earlier, they're included in this grant guidelines document. It is very text heavy, but it's worth a read. It is worth a read to make sure you know exactly what we're looking for, and if you need to come to us with questions before the application or the grant gets started. So those are two big things. We also have a few applications that have been really successful in the past that we've included here that you can view. And then once this session is over, you'll be able to find a recording right here. All right. Can anybody give me a thumbs up if you can see the PowerPoint again? Or a verbal?
Looks good.
Thanks. All right. All right, so we've done eligible expenses, and we will move to the application itself. All right, so as you think about the documentation, you need to get ready for completing the application. You will need to have like a very brief description of the program that you're offering and what that looks like. All the standard documents that we really ask for on our other grant applications. So your IRS letter, the treasurer's report or audit, depending on the size of your organization. We do ask for a board list with addresses, and that's one of the, that's one of the Fairfax eligibility requirements. So addresses can, there's some flexibility there. You know, if you don't want to give home addresses of people on your board, obviously we can talk about those things. So let me know if you have trouble with that documentation. Your most recent 990, the VA 102 form that we just looked at a moment ago. There's also space for additional optional documentation, so that you can include any other thing that you feel is relevant to the particular event or the partnership that you might be establishing. And then I think the last biggest thing to know as you begin to think about writing this application is how we're evaluating it. So there's really two criteria that we are evaluating with. And that's the underserved audience is well documented and majority Fairfax County based. So again, we're going to look at the questions in a minute. We've tweaked a lot of those questions. So we need to know who it is you're going to use these funds to support. And it can be lots and lots of different people. I want to emphasize that. But we need you to have a sense of who you're going to and not just a sense of here's some free tickets. Secondly, the marketing plan is realistic. And in this case, what we mean is you've connected with either directly with participants or with an organization that can help you distribute these tickets. And there's some confirmation or some process in place that's going to be monitored, and it has a timeline, and it's going to be clear how this opportunity is going to proceed. So again, we'll get to the questions in a minute, and I think that will make more sense. All right, so we are going to move back to submittable in the application, or I guess to submittable for the first piece. Make this bigger maybe. Shannon, let me know how we're doing on size here. All right, so I will take us through the whole application itself. First off, if you have not been in submittable in just a moment, please know that they have had some internal updates to their software. They're going to ask you to approve and validate your email address if it's been a little while since you logged in. So don't be surprised to see that. You may see some other new features that are popping up. Some of the formatting's a little different. It's still submittable. Let me know if you have any questions or trouble with it. So when you go to apply, the first thing that you'll see is the eligibility form. It takes all those eligibility criteria, it puts them into question format, and it's asking you to say yes or say no. Please take a moment to read this carefully. Once you submit it, you kind of can't get back to it. And if there's anything in this particular application that you don't know the answer to yet, or you're not sure, and maybe it might change before you're applying, I suggest you hold off on completing this until you're ready to confirm the information here. So what I'm saying is don't rush through it. So the eligibility form is just, again, yes or no questions, asking you to validate that criteria that is in the eligibility section. Once you submit that form, it'll bring you to the application itself. The order of things here is a little bit different than it has been in the past, but the same questions and the same information is here. So we talked about some of those required documents that are here. There's a space for you to upload each one of them. Again, really basic information that we start with in these questions. And then we get into the program itself. So we've started just by restating the criteria here for you, so it is clear and available within the application itself. So reference that as you're answering questions and working. And then you'll notice this section here about the timing of your program. So this is the change that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the conversation. We have it kind of changed the timing. So we're asking that an organization either submit at least 14 days before a program takes place, or after the program takes place, but within 60 days of its completion. There's a couple reasons we did that. We got a few applications that were received maybe 2 to 3 days before the event. And that doesn't even let us have time to read it and before the event takes place. And then we have to send proposed activities, but the event's already done. So we're kind of asking you to choose one or the other, either 14 days before or afterward, but not more than 60 days afterward. That's our reporting window for this grant, so we felt it really lined up with the time frame in which an organization should be applying. So we'll ask you to select one of these options. If you're an organization that is providing for like or writing a grant for like a class scholarship or something that is ongoing, a program that is a singular program but repeated for the same audience or same group of participants, you can also select an ongoing option. The dates are going to be a little bit more flexible around that. Please call me if you need to talk through a specific scenario there. All right, so then we've got space for you to tell us about the dates and the program location, and then a reminder here that the location of the event itself, any performance that you're asking for ticket subsidy is going to need to take place in Fairfax County, City of Falls Church, or City of Fairfax. So then we're asking you to identify how exactly the funding is going to be used here. Some of these checkboxes are going to prompt a different question later in the application. So depending on what you're asking for, we're going to ask you for more information about one of these areas or not. And I'll point that out in a minute too. We've got a table that's going to look very familiar to past years and other tables that you've done. We tried to streamline this one because I think the one associated with ticket subsidy before was kind of all over the place. So what we really want to know is the number of people that you're working with or you're anticipating that will be served through this ticket subsidy. If they are associated with a partner or a group or an informal group or an official group, it could be lots and lots of things. I want to keep the door as wide open as we can. We want to know that group. So some examples would be if you're working with an elementary school to support their music program and engage their class and have their fourth graders receive tickets to your performance. So if you're working with, one elementary school, you're going to tell me the name of that school. The rest, the cost per participant, the ticket subsidy, that's relatively straightforward. And then the event that they are coming to and when that takes place. Sometimes I know we have organizations of lots of different sizes on here. So hopefully this table gives you space if you're working on just one event or with just one partner. Hopefully if you're working with multiple partners for the same event, you can show us how that's going to work out here too. If you are working directly with your constituents, which is also something that organizations are frequently doing, like, so you might know that, I'm going to give an example. If an organization has done a residency program at a school, and now that organization wants to offer camps or camp scholarships for some of the participants in that past program, but maybe that relationship isn't really with the school anymore. Maybe it's directly with those families that you have already connected with through something else. So you can kind of informally name that group, like how are you connected with them or who are they? Just give us something so we can reference this later in the application and you can answer the questions based on who you've included in the table. The only other note I'll add for this particular question, If you're working with larger organizations and large numbers of people like FCPS or NCS, some other Fairfax County group, please try and to delineate those locations so that they're separated. We've had a couple people maybe come in and say, I want 150 tickets for veterans. Okay, who, how is this divided up? Because the next questions are going to ask you about how you're connecting with them and how you're going to engage them so that they are more likely to attend the event. So we kind of need to see the breakdown of some of these groups. If you are, I'm going to keep repeating myself here, if you're not sure how far you should break it down, please don't do the work first. Please come to me and we'll figure it out together, and then you can dive back in with whatever works for you. All right. So I'm seeing a couple of questions into the group. And I'm gonna go a little bit further into the application, and then maybe some of the answers are going to come out in this question. And then we'll come back to what I'm seeing here. There are several sources we can share. So, all right, so we've got our ticket request, some other basic information that we need about, if you've received a grant before for FY25 and how that's gonna pan out. This is another question here. We're asking like who you might be partnering with, and it's okay if the answer is none of the above. I want to be very clear about that. But we think these buckets are going to help us get the right questions later from you so that we have the information we need to approve this grant. So if you say that you're applying with Fairfax County Public Schools, NCS, or another Fairfax County agency, I'm not going to ask you extra questions about how you are confirming the residency of each group, because all those groups are already serving Fairfax County. That makes sense. If you are working with another local nonprofit, there's just a follow-up question down here about how you're going to, for reporting purposes, collect information about who is a Fairfax County, City of Falls Church, and City of Fairfax resident. If you are working with vet ticks or tickets for kids, please chat with me first about that as well. Let's just have a conversation. Wonderful organizations, really, really helpful. In the past, applicants have had varying levels of success at working with those organizations to collect the information we need. So I'm happy to, again, continue the conversation about that. All right, so the next 4 questions go into the program itself and what you're providing. I'll note that these questions here for 2B and 2C, they only appear if you said I'm using funding for transportation. So you're going to see a couple things like that pop up. So let's take a minute on question 3, because I think this answers some of what is being stated in the chat. So we're talking about this funding providing opportunity for expanded access or an under-resourced area of the county. And so while we want to remain true to that desire and goal of expansion, we think that is a really, really broad space, right? And I think sometimes it's very easy to hear that you need to include demographics and immediately think I need to serve an underserved racial population or an underserved ethnic population. Those are both valid and easily applicable to this particular grant. But there's a lot of other ways to identify an underserved population who does not have regular access to the arts. So that's what we're asking you to do in this application. And you may see someone in your community that we don't know, that we don't see. And that's why this definition remains kind of broad right now. We're asking you in these questions to make that connection for us. Who is it that you're not serving? Who is it that you see that's underserved? Like, who's that group of people? Tell us who they are. And this is why you're serving them here. So I'm gonna get to questions in a second. That's why we're kind of like thinking about a group that's a partner organization, or just a group of your audience that you're connecting with. So we've tried to keep it broad so that it is something that an organization can really determine who's the best opportunity for them. So one of the questions in the chat says, how does an elementary school fit under this? Application that we frequently would see is an elementary, like a Title I elementary school, which means that they might have students and families of like a different socioeconomic background. They might not just the Title I, an organization, might have looked at like this school has a certain percentage of free and reduced lunch students, so we want to make this opportunity available to families for free. Like, those are some of the pieces that might be coming together. But again, there's a lot there, and those numbers are not the only numbers that you can base your offering off of. Joe, I'm coming to you in one sec. I will say real quick to answer Busy's question that there are some resources on our website I'm going to put up on the presentation when we're finished today. We have a very long list of organizations that are in the county. We have an ever-expanding relationship with Fairfax County Neighborhood and Community Services. And that is like a network of many, many different things in the county, among which are community centers and senior centers, Head Start and early Head Start programs. And maybe that's also what Busy's talking about in her comment as well. But let me direct you to some of those on the website too. I love that list, and it's a great resource, but sometimes it is also a very long list. So again, if you're in a place where your organization is thinking about this and needs like a brainstorming session, then we are happy to get on a call and have a conversation about that. All right, so I'm going to continue to move through the application. Susan, I do see your question. I'm going to get back to it if we have some time in a moment. Primarily, question 4 is kind of like that last step. So we started with saying, who are you giving the tickets to? And then we're saying, why did you pick this group? Like, what should we know about this group of people that you're expanding the access for? And now we're saying, okay, where are you in the process and what's going to happen from here? So that's the thought process of the application itself. On many of these questions, you'll notice we've kind of added these sub-questions beneath the bottom. It's not intended that you answer every single one. Those are, things to think about and things to share with us as you can in your narrative. All right. This is basically the end of the application, which is great. So there is space for supporting documents and then technical information at the end. You are required to agree to the terms and conditions when you submit the document, which we'll get to in a second. So I'm going to pause one more time. Susan is asking for 2 ticket events, one in May and one in December. I I think that you're probably going to have to do 2 separate requests for May and December. Unless I think it depends on what your relationship and what your process looks like with the people who you're giving tickets to. It seems like they're going to have to be 2 separate offers. So just and I'll repeat the question real quick just in case anybody didn't see it in the chat. Susan was asking, if we're requesting tickets for 2 events, like one in December and one in May, can we combine the requests in one application, or do you prefer we do 2 separate? And, you know, based on the new timing recommendations that we have, it seems like 2 separate is probably what's going to work. But again, if you want to talk through it for your particular organization, give me a call. And then for organizations that provide reduced price tickets versus free, what is the typical amount or average amount charged? That varies quite a bit. I think for most people that I've seen who have done only a ticket subsidy, so maybe like the organization is paying most of the cost, but the recipient maybe pays $5. I've heard from a few applicants that works better for them, because if they give the tickets away for free, it's really hard to get people in the room. But I think, again, that is very organization specific and probably specific to the partner that you're working with. All right, so Joe, I'm going to come back to your question in a minute because I think it might be very specific to your organization. I want to make sure we get through the information we have here as well. All right. So we've taken a look at the application and submittable. My other quick submittable tip would always be to save frequently as you're going through that application. All right. So once you get that application submitted, it's up to Arts Fairfax staff to review and process that request. So in this case, the grant is only reviewed by Arts Fairfax staff. So we do start by reviewing it for eligibility and completeness. If we find that you're not eligible for some reason, we will reject it without further review, without sending it to the grants committee. If it is incomplete, we can reject it without further review. We usually reach out and ask you to finish something. So it's, you know, we try to help you through the process. So anybody who is eligible then is reviewed by the staff. We make a recommendation to the grants committee and they vote on the recommendation that is made. So we will notify you of your grant status within 30 days of receiving that application. The one caveat to that is if we have to reach out and ask for clarification or more information about something you've included in your application, that 30-day window is going to reset once you give us the additional information. So let's say the grants committee has all completely approved your award, you're ready to go. We will send you acknowledgement of that award approval. We will send you the full terms and conditions of the grant. They're available on our website, and most of what's included there is also included in the grant guidelines. These are the key points that the terms and conditions address. But again, the full text is available on our website, much of which is very similar to the other grants that we offer. I do want to highlight the acknowledgement of Arts Fairfax funding to help us to continue to advocate for this grant and funding throughout the county. It's really important that our organizations support that we have awarded them a grant. So we have a really, really lovely, updated, brand new grantee communications kit on our website. It's slimmed down to 2 pages. So check that out for this and any other grant that you're receiving from Arts Fairfax. We hope it makes your life easier, and we appreciate you tagging us in anything that you put in social media as well. It is the same as all the other grant categories. So if you've seen it for operating support, you've seen it for ticket subsidy. All right. So last key dates for this grant. The application is up and running. It's open. June 30th of FY25 will be the last day to apply. The funding pool this year is around $48,000. So I do suspect the funding will run out prior to June of 2025. You can call me at any time and say, hey, how much is left? And I will give anybody that answer who asks for it. I will tell you what's left and the number of applications that I have pending. So if you're concerned about getting yourself stuck in a strange spot where you're offering it, but you don't know how much money is left, I'll give you that information whenever you need it. Like we mentioned, oh, geez, I think I just realized there's a slight discrepancy. So 14 days prior to the event, the start of the event, or not more than 60 days after. I will get this slide changed in just a moment. But not right on top of the event is the gist of that deadline for your organization. We will notify you of the award within 30 days of submission, and there's a final report due after 60 days of the funds being used. So back to what Busy kind of hit on in her chat just a minute ago. My predecessor, Lisa Miriam, who many of you know, put together a really, really thorough list of partners within the county, and that's still on our website. So I'm not going to take us there at this moment, but that includes contacts in Fairfax County for NCS, which is Neighborhood and Community Services. It includes a process for you to really broadly share a ticket offering with NCS and their constituents across the board. It includes contacts in FCPS, different art program contacts, different central admin contacts, and it includes, I think, a list of all human service organizations in Fairfax County. So it is very much just a list, and it kind of does amount to cold calling people, but it's there, and we're happy to look at it together as well. So these links can take you straight to the application and to the resources on our website, and I'll put this in an email after our session today. So I think that's my last slide. Yeah. All right. I'm going to hop back into our questions, see what we've got, and make sure I didn't miss anybody. So Joanna, I can hop to yours in just a sec, but it is a little organization specific. So for anybody else on the call here, do you have other questions for us? What can we help you with?
Hi, Kelly.
Paige?
Thank you for all of this. This is so very helpful. I did have a question, and it might be in one of those links to partners, but do you have any advice for how to present to a potential partner, especially when that grant money is not there yet? Because you need to see what your potential partnership would be, but you might not have the ability to promise them that it can come through yet.
Yeah.
So suggestions.
Yes, there's a lot of chicken and the egg sometimes with this one, and where to start and where to go. So I think talking to a partner about their needs as an organization and like the history of how their organization maybe has engaged with a process like this. So, for example, I'll mention a school that shows up a lot. Well, maybe I won't mention it by name because it does show up a lot. So let's say Kelly Troy Elementary School. Elementary school, it really likes to offer tickets to their families, and really likes to offer tickets specifically maybe through their program for second language learners. And they know that historically they get about 15 people who reply to this request. So as you talk to a partner, they might be able to identify how their constituents usually respond to things. Like what would a good starting place be? What's too high or too low? They maybe can tell you like, oh yeah, maybe you can come for 5 minutes and give us an introduction to your organization to really drum up some interest and put a face to that name. And those are things that could really support your application, right? To just speak to the process that you would like to use. And then even if, I think, potentially if you are just doing an introduction and kind of seeing where that can go, that's a way to start the conversation. The NCS resources on our website also come with very specific language that says kind of, you're not guaranteed these tickets. It says, we might be able to offer something. How many would you take if we could offer something? And then in that particular case, the burden kind of falls to NCS to facilitate that conversation to some extent. So that's possibly a way to offer something with that without putting your tickets on the line necessarily. But I understand that conversation is hard.
That's really helpful though. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Susan, I see your hand up too.
Yeah, actually, just responding to Paige's question, that's exactly what we did last year when we did the ticket subsidy grant. And we were doing it very, very close to the event. We let both organizations know that, this was something that we were pursuing, but it would be offered pending approval from Arts Fairfax. They were both fine with that. We even on the flyers that we provided to their members and their residents said, sign up for free tickets, but the tickets are pending approval of funding. And no one seemed to have a problem with that. It worked out very well.
Thanks for mentioning that, Susan. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions, anything that you want to review in the information? Busy, yeah.
Yeah, I was just, it's wonderful that there is that very comprehensive list of potential community partners and under-resourced audiences who would benefit from the subsidy grants. I'm just curious as to whether there could be another list that's developed with input from all of the organizations that have succeeded in establishing partnerships with some of these communities, community groups, and low-income audiences, so that we know that there are these people who say, yes, please, get in touch with us. We would love to benefit from any free ticket offers, so that we can all build on those relationships and bring that benefit to those communities, not just once, but numerous times.
I do. I think primarily right now, the first thing is that Neighborhood and Community Services is a really great partner in facilitating exactly that. And there are a lot of organizations that are eager for opportunities for their constituents there. One thing I've learned from that recent experience with them, since they are sometimes serving constituents by age, so that I realize that not every arts organization is trying to offer a service for, Head Start age children, right? So sometimes our arts organizations don't, it's helpful to make sure that you're lining up with what's being offered out there, what you want, what the organizations are able to offer. But really, I would strongly encourage you to start with NCS. And I will tell you that in recent conversations, one tip that was shared by Kelly Naylor is that if you have the ability to create some kind of marketing flyer or even a quick video about your organization, that really helps NCS sites think about who could benefit from this opportunity. I think just getting an email and saying, here's some tickets is not quite as eye-catching and engaging. So if you have the capacity to include that in the NCS request, it's going to go a long way.
Yeah, I was even thinking though that even within the Arts Fairfax funded organization, group of organizations that, for instance, Joanna, you mentioned the LGBTQ teens, and early 20s group, that if that's a group that others of us could send free tickets to, that would be good to know. And likewise with other organizations, if you've connected with certain groups that would reap that, would appreciate reaping that benefit from other organizations, that would be a good list to have in terms of resources. But definitely, I appreciate all the work that Kelly Naylor has put into establishing these relationships, and I like the idea of the introduction via video and marketing materials. That makes sense.
Yeah. May I just say something? I think what you've just said is really great, and Kelly, you explained it. So I'm standing here going, oh my gosh, Herndon High. I'm just pushing this one out there. Herndon High School has got an LGBTQ plus society group, and they're really lovely. I recently did Herndon Pride for the first time. They were so helpful. They were so great. And I could actually create the flyer with the bands and say, hey, this is coming. Do any of the members of your group, would they like tickets? Is that how I could do it, Kelly? Busy, what do you think?
I think I can answer that question. That's the Arts Fairfax question. I am not quite sure I understand who is the recipient of funds. I do think this is a question for us to look at a little bit more individually. Okay. I have a hard stop time of 1:15 today. Yeah, okay. So I want to get through as many broad.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Busy, I mean, perhaps you and I could talk as well, Busy.
Yeah, as long as you're offering either tickets or a participation scholarship. And I was sort of confused by what you put in the chat.
Well, free or reduced price tickets to come to the concerts, but to a specific group in the high school, which is the LGBT. I mean, they're an underserved part of that age group, especially, are a very underserved part, and they're all diversities.
Okay. Yep, I get it. I do. I'm sorry. Liz, I want to answer your question real quick in the chat because I think it's a fast one. $5,000 is the maximum for an entire grant year, fiscal year, which is the same. So you would not be able to apply twice.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I saw Emily with a hand up too. I want to make sure. Oop.
Yeah. Sorry, I just lowered it so that because then I'll hang out with it on. So I have a quick question, and Kelly, I know you have a heart out, so if you and I can maybe connect about this personally, but we've had some issues in the past, not issues, but trouble communicating around usage. So we have, just to give everyone an example, we have applied for the last 2 years for our youth engagement subscription. which or Yes Pass, which gives free subscriptions to high school students in Fairfax County Public Schools. So it's available to any high school student in Fairfax County. We have currently about 82 subscribers under that program who can call in those tickets at any time. So those tickets are guaranteed for those students. Not all of them use them for every performance or any particular production, but we do sort of guarantee those seats for those students. And so I'm curious about recommendations from Arts Fairfax for how to talk about that in terms of usage and cost.
Yeah. I think ideally, it depends on when you're applying, right? It depends on if you're applying more as a proposal and what you'd like, or if you're applying after the fact. If you're applying after the fact, I think in general, the committee is expecting to see an actual of what happened, right? If you're applying ahead of time and you're able to say something like, you can speak to the historical relationship or the current relationship that you've developed with FCPS or any organization, then you can speak in how the expected usage is going to look and why that's a realistic expected usage, why that marketing plan is realistic. I think the other thing we have repetitively heard from the committee, which gets into an honestly a tricky space for our grantees, is that just saying the organization is serving veterans or just saying an organization is serving students or senior citizens, that doesn't necessarily give us enough information about being an underserved population or someone who, so in the application, if you're serving one of those groups more broadly, you need to speak to why this group is underserved in some way. Like, how have you expanded the access? So it's tricky. I think you've done it really well, Emily. So if you want to brainstorm ideas, I'm here.
Thank you. I really appreciate you, Kelly. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you all for joining. I know a bunch of people have hopped off already and Shannon's mentioning everything. I don't think I've missed anyone in the chat, but the chat's moving kind of fast. So if I have missed you, could you speak up now? And we will probably be almost done. All right. Oh, there's one more pop it. Hang on. Let's see. Perfect. Okay. Thank you all so much for your attendance today. I'm definitely a broken record, but I'd rather call and chat with you than have to have a difficult conversation when this is done. So I don't always answer my phone on the first ring, but I will call you, or you can send me an email, whichever is your preferred form of connecting, and I look forward to chatting with you all. Thanks.
Thanks a million, Kelly.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.